warding off strangers with a ferocious bark. How faithfully he guarded the tiny space the cruel world had allotted his master, over which he had taken dominion that cold winter night. That proud little dog held his head up high. He had a job to do. For him, his master was a god, and his job was to restore to his best friend the dignity the world had stripped from him. A dog understands how important it is to serve and to love, to never succumb to despair, to keep faith with life, even if he can't be fetching sticks in the countryside. I was touched by the nobility of that scruffy little dog and the sadness etched in the face of the man he so loved, and I wept for them both. This poem is called The Trouble with Counting Sheep. The trouble with counting sheep, I realized one night as I was desperate to fall asleep, is getting them to behave properly and line up all in a row so you can get an accurate count. Lest one of them wander off, and there you are, up all night, worrying about the one who had gone astray. Sure, they are cute and cuddly, like warm flannel pajamas, but every experienced sheep herder knows you'll never be able to round them up and get them to stay still without a well-trained sheepdog. It is best to get a sheepdog with a name like Bullet, because that dog would be fast and nimble on his feet and could get the job done speedily so you could soon get back to sleep. The problem is that dogs named Bullet tend to be high-strung and they bark a lot. So there you are, with a fast-as-lightning sheepdog, earnestly trying to do his job, keeping you up all night with his damn barking, and you're back where you started with your old friend, insomnia. When I mentioned this problem to a friend of mine who teaches high school math and just happens to train dogs, he suggested I give Bullet a challenge and train him to herd the sheep into both odd and even-numbered groups, which only the smartest dogs can do, but that way he would stop barking because he wouldn't be bored. Now, this all went well until Bullet got overconfident and decided to add his newly acquired math skills to his herding repertoire in order to make his job more interesting. One night, he rounded up 36 sheep and corralled them into a pen and attempted to divide them by 8 sheep. Now right away, if you're paying attention, you'll see the problem. Because 36 sheep divided by 8 sheep is 4.5 sheep. This only made Bullet confused and frustrated, and therefore his barking grew louder. Before long, I too became confused and frustrated, and I began to wonder whatever happened to that partial sheep, that 4.5 sheep. And what parts was he missing? Was it a leg or a lung? And was the cause of his misfortune congenital or the result of faulty parenting? And I wondered if that poor little fellow would be ostracized by all the other sheep if I didn't take him in at night. Needless to say, my sleep that night was very spotty. Perhaps it would make more sense to count something more manageable than sheep. Sloths would be a good bet. You see, sloths would be a good bet because you could get rid of the barking dog if you have a sloth. And the dog wouldn't be keeping you up all night. Watching the slow motion movements of these lethargic, soporific mammals, your eyelids would grow heavy. And before long, you'd be fast asleep, dreaming of faraway places and exotic animals, or that high school sweetheart you were in love with but were too shy to ask for a date. Now, don't get me wrong. I love dogs, even barking dogs named Bullet. I love them for their unbridled enthusiasm and the sweet comfort and companionship they have provided us humans for thousands of years. But if you don't actually have a dog of your own, and you insist on inserting a dog into your nighttime sleep aid fantasy, just get the imaginary dog to lie down with you and you'll fall asleep like a baby, all cuddled up with your best friend, snoring away, his head next to yours on your imaginary pillow. Where are we going next?
Martin.
We going to Martin? All right. This is page 54. All right. So we're going to do 3 poems about 3 of the most important figures in the civil rights movement: Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Maya Angelou. The Reverend Dr. King is weeping, restless in his grave. We're done with him now, laid him to rest for a second time, closed the book on his life, punctuated his story with a fine-looking monument on the National Mall. We've soothed our nation's conscience, given him his due, glorified him in stone while ignoring his cry for justice. Let it move you. Poverty and racism still stalk the land, but the good doctor has his monument. Militarism and materialism still eat at the soul of our nation, but the good doctor has his monument. How easy to sing praises for the dead when they're tucked safely in the ground, unable to challenge the stench of our hypocrisy. How much easier to erect a monument than to build the better world he dreamed of. This noble soul, gentle, fierce, and courageous, died for all of us, tirelessly marching, preaching, organizing, challenging us always to be more than we are. We owe him more than a monument. We owe him a monumental change of heart, a monumental change of values, and the deep down courage and perseverance of the preacher, prophet, bluesman that he was, putting our shoulder to the task, getting into the mud, doing the heavy lifting, if we are to set our nation right and create of our lives a living monument that honors him truly. This next song is about Malcolm X, and it's called It's Crying Time. Malcolm's gone. It's crying time. God's black revolutionary voice, words fierce as thunder, bold as lightning, sharp as a blade, cutting and slashing all the dirty, ugly lies America has told about itself. Standing tall, proud, and handsome, with that wondrous, infectious smile that broadcasts to anyone with eyes to see and ears to hear just how much he loved his people. The fierce, tender love so deep, he was willing to die for their freedom.